great to have you on the show.
Well, thank you.
This report by the two retired U.S. generals is alarming. They say that Washington and the White House needs to wake up, and they need to wake up real soon. You said they're in denial.
Well, they are, and they have been for quite some time. You know, this is a wake-up call. It's a call to action. We need to start doing something about this. It's a problem, a threat that's right in our backyard, right on our doorstep. And, you know, this administration wants to say that the border is secure and let's move on, mission accomplished. And that's what we're hearing in Washington, very much in denial of the threat. And yet you have two generals like McCaffrey and Scales who not bringing politics into this at all. They know how to secure borders. They know to assess threats, and they provide a strategic military assessment of the problem, and it's pretty powerful. This report that tells it like it is, that there is violence not only in Mexico but on this side, and that if we don't do something about this, you know, we're going to start seeing the level of violence that we're seeing in Mexico start occurring here in the United States. It's important to remember that the drug cartels are in 270 cities across the United States, and particularly in Texas, you have these interstates that go both through Houston and then San Antonio, Austin to Dallas, where they operate out of. So they're in the United States. They're present in the United States. You know, the 40,000 people have been killed in Mexico during this war, and President Calderon will call it a war. It's just been brutal, and it's not getting any better. And if we don't start taking action now, it's going to start getting worse in the United States as well.
Well, along with President Calderon, General Robert Scales, the co-author of this report, he made very clear this is not just criminal activity we're seeing anymore. This is a war. And you know, I've talked with the sheriffs along the border there, and they've called it a war. And you talk to sheriffs in North Carolina, who are seeing the cartels showing up in their small towns. And to this administration, this isn't a priority?
Yeah, and President Calderon does call it a war, and, you know, what Scales calls it is an insurgency. And it is, and they're shooting at our guys now. I mean, they shot Agent Jaime Zapata, killed him, and they shot, his partner, and then they shot Border Patrol agents on this side of the border. It's a real deal, and we're not taking it seriously enough. The president comes down to El Paso to give a political speech and says mission accomplished. He just doesn't know what he's talking about. And, there's a lot we need to be doing.
It's so true. And they go there to El Paso and they say, hey, look at the border, friends. It's making a difference. Well, maybe they ought to step outside El Paso. Like Sheriff Babu says, I've been asking the president to come down here so we can show him what we're dealing with day in and day out. You know, our deputies are on the front line of defense, and we can't battle this war by ourselves. And he never goes down there.
He's only been down once is to give that political speech. And, you know, El Paso is a fortified city with, as you mentioned, double fencing, concrete barricades. You got a military base there, and you got the El Paso Intelligence Center. So, yeah, it's comparatively, compared to other border towns, a little safer. But, what we said with Dr. Vickers, who's a rancher down there, is
yes,
go outside of El Paso and look at some of these areas. We had Dr. Vickers showed us picture after picture of bodies and human skulls that have been left on his ranch in his county. And more alarming to me is he said that other than Mexican apprehensions in the McAllen sector have gone up to 60%. Now, I've heard that figure's like 37% increase, but when he said 60% in his sector, that's alarming because we're not just talking about seasonal workers coming here to work. We're talking about people from countries like, Iran,
right,
Afghanistan, Pakistan, Somalia. That's a real, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And those people coming into the United States could pose a real terrorist threat.
You know, and it's so true. I've been down there with Doc Vickers. He took us out a couple of times, and, they made major arrests when we were sitting there with our cameras. But, his wife also found the head of a woman in her front yard. I mean, it's just tragic what's going on. And you're so right. If we don't get a handle on it, we're going to have this not only along the border, but in every city across this country.
Well, and the one thing the report does as well that I was glad that they support my bill to designate the drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. In the report, they basically support my idea in my bill to designate these drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. Because, quite simply, they are. They operate like terrorists. We've seen the decapitations, we've seen the people being burned alive, the political assassinations of mayors and governors, and they are trying to take over Mexico. They are terrorizing the civilian population, and it falls squarely within the definition. If it's designated as a foreign terrorist organization, give us a lot more tools in the toolbox and a lot of ammunition to go after them, whether it's freezing bank assets, deporting them, going in Mexico. And so I'm hopeful that this will give my legislation some really strong support. We can get it passed.
I've got to ask you before you head out, because I know you're driving across Texas and we're starting to break up. What do you plan to do with this report? Do you plan to have these generals testify before Congress?
Yes. We're scheduling a hearing the second week over, and I plan to have General Scales and General McCaffrey, Todd Staples, who's our agriculture commissioner, who did a good job getting this out, and then Dr. Vickers as well.
Okay.
To tell the real story. I mean, I had a Tail 2 border hearing where I had the bureaucrats in Washington say it's never been more secure, and then I had the border sheriffs and the director of DPS give a totally different account of what it's like to be down there. And what I want to do is bring these generals, have them tender the report to the Homeland Security Committee, and then in turn I'm going to tender that report directly to Secretary Janet Napolitano.
All right, well, we'll make sure we're there to cover it, but, I mean, it's amazing. You look at this report, it shows that 18,000 cartel members are operating inside Texas, and that's just Texas.
This is Texas. They're really using Texas as a launch pad to the rest of the country. They're starting to control the counties on our side of the border so they can have better access, across the river. And, if they buy these ranches and they control them, that gives them safety, and they've really kind of created a safe haven or a sanctuary for themselves to move freely into the United States.